The 671st edition of the Four Corners podcast starts right now.
This is the Four Corners podcast.
Walton ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered. Marvin. He scores. 17-second left. And he was fouled. Here we go. Lawson with a runner. No. The rebound. Hansbrough at the gun. Got it.
They were 4 for 24.
Hansbrough on a switch on Paulus. A deep three. And Green rips down the rebound in traffic. 4-on-1.
What a great job. What a terrific job in transition. I mean, you couldn't plan that any better as a coach.
Tipped away by Johnson. It's loose. Page. Johnson.
They're dancing in the aisles. They're high-fiving. They're celebrating. They're going bananas on Franklin Street.
Pass to Britt, 15 seconds to play. Up high to Page, gets a screen from Meeks. Page driving in on the left, high off the glass for 2. 6 seconds to go. Pinson comes front court. Pinson to May for the win. Got it! Luke May! He got it! 0.3 of a second! Luke May gives Carolina the 75-73 lead. Are you kidding?
Into Dixon. Boozer switches onto him. Dixon the kick. Trimble! Got it! And Carolina wins it!
Here are your hosts, Josh Marlowe and Anthony Pagnotta.
Hello and welcome into another live edition of the Four Corners podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Josh and Anthony here with you guys on a Tuesday night, about an hour and a half or so since Carolina got on a bus, went to Raleigh and got whooped 82-58 as Carolina falls to 20-6 on the year. They're now 8-5 in ACC play. And that outlook to earn a double bye for the ACC tournament is looking much and more unlikely as we get closer to the end of the regular season. We're here to talk about the loss, as we always are when Carolina does lose. And obviously we thought Carolina was going to win the game. We also thought Henri Veesaar was going to be able to play. And had he not been able to play, maybe we still thought Carolina would have won. Regardless, would have thought Carolina would have been much more competitive than they were tonight, but that was ultimately not the case. This game was pretty much over for all intents and purposes by the end of the first half, where State had built a 16-point lead that they would never relinquish. They led by as many, I think it's 22, 23 in the game, and this was just a game that Carolina never found its footing, and they never once felt like they were settled into the game. They never once felt like they were ready to be competitive. From the opening tip, you knew who the better team was, and unfortunately, it was that god-awful team in red that was the better team on their way to getting their most significant win of their season. Will Wade gets his first win over Carolina as State's head coach, and as I mentioned, no Caleb Wilson, as we knew going in. We found out about 5 o'clock that Henri Veesaar was not going to be available to play. So back-to-back games, Carolina did not have their starting their top 2 scorers and rebounders. The first time that has happened for the UNC basketball program since 1978. Tells you just how much of a rarity it's been for Carolina to be without 2 productive players like they were. And once we knew that Veesaar was out, it was going to be an uphill battle. And that's what it was, as Carolina, suffered their biggest loss to State since 2002, and the worst loss overall in the rivalry matchup dating back to 1959. Carolina shot a season low 32% from the field. They were 5 of 33 from behind the three-point line for an even worse 15%. You got, a double-double from Zayden High, but he did foul out in 30 minutes. You got a pretty decent performance once again from Jaren Stevenson. So Carolina's front court did an admirable job, all things considered, the fact that you were down your two starters, and then your even two were, your two depth guys, James Brown, Ivan Matlakovich, both guys were out as well. But none of that matters as Carolina. I think you could say, even without your two best players, this is the worst loss of the season. I think this is worse than losing at Stanford, worse than losing at Cal, mainly just because there was a lack of competitiveness from this team tonight, a lack of fight from this team tonight that we knew they needed to have going in, whether they had their two best players or not. They didn't have their two best players. They didn't have any fight with them, and it's a big reason why they got blown out tonight the way they did by a NC State team that is good, by a state team that is going to go to the NCAA tournament, but I don't think should be beating you in the manner which they beat you tonight.
No, never should happen. It's inexcusable for it to happen. And there are a lot of people that have to be held accountable, including the head coach of the Tar Heels as well. Don't put it all on him, but I certainly think that there is some blame to go around for just about everybody when it comes to this type of performance against that team. You should have come out much, much more prepared for this game. They just looked completely ill-prepared. And, I mean, my thing is how were you not preparing for this the last few days? I mean, as far as we know, Henri Veesaar has not been on the court with this team. And so they should have been preparing as if they weren't going to have him. Didn't look like a team that really was that prepared in that area. But any time that you shoot as poorly as you shoot from beyond the arc in this game, anytime that your guards play as poorly as they did in this game, there's really nothing that you can say from that standpoint that's going to change the outcome of the game. They are always going to lose if they shoot the way that they shot outside of Jaren Stevenson and Zayden High. Doesn't matter if Caleb Wilson or Henri Veesaar played in this game. If they would have shot that way, which I don't think they would have, I think it probably would have been a little bit different because there would have been more focus in the paint for NC State. But if they still would have shot that way, it wouldn't have really mattered. I think that's the most shocking thing is that we asked these guards, please, you need to step up with these guys out. Especially, we were saying when Caleb was out, we needed these guys to step up. But especially when you then don't have Henry, it becomes crucial for those guys to play some of the best games of their season. And that is not what we saw tonight. That's not what we saw even when these guys were healthy in the game against Miami. This is 2 straight midweek games where the backcourt has looked rather pedestrian. Pedestrian is being really kind about it. It's more pathetic is what we've seen from this group of guys. So, I would hope that they're going to be able to regroup from this at some point here. They need to regroup for Saturday because that's a game that against Syracuse is pretty much a must win for this group if they want to stay in contention to stay on that 6 line where they were coming into the night, having any chance of doing that, or even staying away from that 8-9 type of area where we thought they could potentially fall. That's the thing is that if you are going to play the way that you played tonight with the guards, and we don't know how long Henri Veesaar is going to be out. We don't know how long Caleb Wilson's going to be out. This season can turn quick if Carolina's not careful.
Yeah, look, Hubert said that Veesaar is day-to-day. Now, it doesn't appear that he's been getting a whole lot of on-court practice time. But if he made a big jump yesterday. He's being listed as day-to-day. After today, I would imagine that they got to be pretty optimistic he's going to be able to go for Saturday's game against Syracuse. And I think we need to be prepared for Caleb Wilson to be back on the court a lot sooner than that initial timeline. We're seeing him do things with the ball, that he probably should not be doing. But that just tells you where he is in his rehab and that this is probably going to be a kid that's going to play hurt. But B, that's how much it means to him to have a chance to go out there and finish this season strong. I don't really have a whole lot of vitriol for Hubert Davis. I really don't. I don't really know what more he could have done tonight to make this outcome any different. When you look at what we know, when we had our rants and we were complaining about the defense and the West Coast trip, that was a 3-week span of where Carolina did not play good defense. And there were schematical adjustments that Carolina wasn't making that was leading to them being carved up the way they got carved up from the outside. It's not his fault that his guys did not make shots. It's not his fault that they committed the turnovers that they committed. It's not his fault that for whatever reason, the Seth Trimble we saw on Saturday put consistent pressure on the Pitt defense. That Seth Trimble didn't get on the bus today. That guy didn't make the trip to Raleigh. The people coming after Hubert, what do you want him to do when he's without his two best players that impact as much as anything Carolina does on both ends of the floor as two players that Carolina has had in quite some time? This was a compromised roster that just ran into a team that, like we said when we previewed the game, probably the worst thing they did was not only lose on Saturday, but the manner that they lost, blowing a 7-point lead. You knew Will Wade was going to get after them. You know how important this game was going to be to them. So I don't really have a whole lot of vitriol for Hubert. I really don't. And I feel like, we have a reputation as a podcast that when it's right to be upset, when it's right to go after him, I feel like more often than not, we step up to the plate and we're able to knock it out of the park. This is just a player thing. Tonight was a player thing where your guys just did not execute. I thought Luka Bogovac, from the moment he first touched the ball, I thought he was overwhelmed. I thought he was scared. I thought he was tentative. And it felt like he did not want to be there. And I know he'll show up scoring 9 points and shooting 40% from behind the 3-point line, going 2 for 5. But he was atrocious, I thought, in the first half. Derek Dixon, a lot of complaining about Derek Dixon. And look, I get it. He needs to play better. And Carolina needs more production from him. But this is also a byproduct, in my opinion, of the fact that you waited as late as you did to make the switch to make him your full-time starting point guard. There were always going to be bumps in the road. You could have had those bumps in the road at the end of non-conference play, but you chose to ride Kyan Evans out. You chose to ride Kyan Evans to the start of conference play and then make that decision. So, when Derek Dixon was making the big plays down the stretch to beat Duke, there was a whole bunch of praise for him, but he's had some rough moments here, and it feels like we've kind of forgotten that this was always going to be a part of the process with him, where he's going to have his moments where he flashes, because I think there's a toughness to him that we can all appreciate, but he's a freshman point guard learning on the job how to run Carolina's offense and do all the things that we demand out of a point guard spot. It's not going to be smooth sailing the entire way. To me, I'm most disappointed in Seth Trimble, man. Once Caleb Wilson went down, your leadership became even more invaluable than it already was. Then you lose Henri Veesaar. That takes it to another level where now we need you to lead, but we need you to score. We need you to be a difference maker. We need you to be a guy that we saw on Saturday scoring 19 points and going to the foul line 11 times. He scores 4 points, is 1 of 9 from the field, 0 of 3 from behind the 3-point line. And I thought his shot selection from his very first shot that he took, which he got bailed out by a foul, where he just dribbled around for 10 seconds until the shot clock was about to run out, and he hoisted up a jump shot and he drew a foul on it. I thought that set the tone for an offensive night that I think we all want to forget, because Carolina's shot selection tonight was absolutely putrid. It was the worst shot selection we have seen all season long. And if there was another game that would stand out, I would tell you, because the one thing I criticize is shots. What kind of shots are you taking? And the team the other day without Caleb Wilson Henri Veesaar generated and took quality shots. That cannot be further from the truth tonight as they shoot a season-low 32% from the field. And for whatever reason, despite still having a size advantage on the inside, because of how small State is, over half of their shots came from behind the three-point line. And instead of making a high number of threes, Carolina shoots 15% from behind the three-point line to complete the worst offensive performance of the ACC season and the worst offensive performance dating back to either the win at Kentucky or the loss to Michigan State back at the Fort Myers tip-off.
Yeah, I mean, it's just pathetic is what it is. I mean, it's just a bad look for these guys all around. I mean, yeah, for Seth Trimble, yeah, it's as bad as it gets, man. I mean, this is now 2 midweek games in a row where you have not brought it for Carolina in the slightest. And this game was one that you would have thought you would have brought it. You knew the night was not going to go well when he missed the dunk over Van Allen Lubin early in the game. I think that was probably the telling moment because after that, it seemed like State really just cranked up the intensity and there was absolutely nothing that he could do about it. On the defensive end of the floor, incredibly disappointed with what we saw from him and the guards. I mean, could not stay in front of Kadir Copeland to save their life. And Kadir Copeland's a good player. Kadir Copeland's not that good of a player. So I mean, it's just a bad overall look for Carolina's guards when you put together this type of performance. I mean, with Derek Dixon, yeah, it's just the point guard position as a whole, man. It doesn't matter who it is. It's got to be better for Carolina to be better. And I think that's the concerning part about it is that even when this team does get healthy, you still wonder, are you going to be able to get production consistently out of that point guard spot? I mean, tonight, that was a spot that you were looking for somebody to step up in. And I mean, Dixon goes 2 of 12 from the field and 1 of 9 from beyond the arc. At some point, you got to stop looking for your shot from beyond the arc because it just wasn't going. It's not something that, has shown to be a strength of his here recently. And so you would have liked to see him try to be more aggressive driving the basket. And, credit to State. They did a really good job of really taking away the driving lanes for most of the night for Carolina. But, Trevor Williams-Marks, who does great stuff for Inside Carolina, pointed out that there were some things that could have been done differently by the coaching staff to be able to get more open looks for Carolina, create some of those lanes for Carolina to be able to drive to the basket. And so, that's pretty tough to hear. I think, it's definitely something that, when you look at it, you really point the finger at the players for sure. And I think they deserve a lot of the blame for how tonight went. But there probably were some things that could have been done coaching wise to free some guys up, especially trying to get downhill and get to the basket, because that's the thing that you saw on the other end State was able to do. That's the thing that's really disheartening about this game. As we talked about going in, the one thing that NC State could do that you thought could affect Carolina was the way that they shoot the three-point ball in terms of percentages. When you look at it, they're not a team that shoots it a lot in conference play from beyond the arc, but they shoot it at a pretty high clip. And, I was thinking that was an area that NC State could be really efficient tonight. I mean, they shoot 45% from there, but they hit 9 of them. We said if you hit 8 or 9, we thought Carolina could be competitive in this game. Part of that is that you would hope that Carolina would hit more than 5, especially in a game where they shot 33. But, the thing about shot selection, it was just – it's as bad as it gets in this game. I thought Miami was another game where Carolina didn't shoot the ball well. That was nothing in comparison tonight, where early in the game, Carolina just chose to stop trying to drive the basket and just settle for shots on the perimeter over and over again. And for the most part, I mean, yeah, Carolina didn't get great open looks. It wasn't like guys were wide open the entire night and shots just weren't falling. There were shots that were wide open that weren't falling either, but there were a lot of shots that were contested, and and it's hard for those to go down for Carolina. So a lot of different things leading to this recipe for a huge blowout for Carolina on the road against NC State, and ultimately what we are calling the worst loss of the season for the Tar Heels.
Yeah, at one point, Carolina was 13 of 54 from behind the three-point line in their last two games. That was the road loss last week to Miami, the road loss tonight to NC State. 13 makes, not a real bad number depending on how many times you shoot the three ball. 54 threes with or without Caleb Wilson, with or without Henri Veesaar is still too many because, it felt like, Zayden High was able to get some good post position. I thought his energy was an impact on the glass. He records his first double-double, but, he dealt with foul trouble, only played 30 minutes. And Jared Stevenson also got you double figures as well. Like, those two guys did as good of a job as they could have done going into the game. And they combined for 26 and 19. I think if we would have said going into that they give you that kind of production, maybe you feel, does Carolina win the game? I don't know. I would at least thought Carolina would have been more competitive with that production that you're getting from two reserve bigs as opposed to your two starting bigs that averaged, a combined 38 and 19. But unfortunately, that did not appear to be the case. Let's take a look now at the box score, and I'll pull it up for you guys back at home. It's an ugly one for Carolina, so we'll enjoy combing through this. The Heels shoot just 32% from the field, season low. They were 19 of 60. They were 2 of their last 10. Did not make a basket the last 2 minutes and 45 seconds. On the flip side, State shoots 48% from the field after shooting north of 50% in the first half. We lamented the three-point shooting. State shoots 9 of 20 for 45%. Carolina 15%. They were 5 of 33 free throw shooting. Carolina, got to the foul line more than State did, but 15 of 21 was not going to cut it. They missed some free throws early in the first half that could have kept them within distance of the game. On the flip side, State shoots 69%. They were 11 of 16. Turnovers. I think what we've learned about this Carolina team as we continue to learn more about them and how different they are at home, away from at home and on the road. On the road, this team's going to turn the ball over. They turn it over 12 times. That led to 16 points for NC State. On the flip side, Carolina, when they're away from home, they're not going to force turnovers. They force just 4 State miscues, score just 3 points off of that. No Wilson, no Veesaar, but Carolina still wins the rebounding battle 40-38. They were out-rebounded on the defensive glass 26-23, but they won the battle of the offensive glass 17-12. But they got just 12 second chance points on 17 offensive rebounds. On the flip side, State, 17 second chance points on 12 offensive rebounds. That number should be the other way around. That number should be in favor of Carolina. Bench points goes in favor of NC State, 25-14. Points in the paint goes in favor of NC State, 40-28. Fast break points in favor of NC State, 13-12. Both teams had 3 blocks. How about 7 steals for State against none for Carolina? So you were -7 in that category. And then assists. State had 13 assists on 31 made baskets. Carolina, 9 assists on their 19 made baskets. The game was tied 1 time. There were 3 lead changes. All in all, though, Carolina led for just 30 seconds on the road tonight in Raleigh. Let's now transition to the quote of excuse me. I was trying to mute me before the sneeze got me, but the sneeze got the best of me right there. Let's now get to the quote of the game. And I just read this off of a good friend of the show, Shelby Swanson. She was live tweeting his presser as she always does. But here was a quote that I pulled from Hubert's address to the media. He said, quote, "Going into this game, We knew we needed the ability to shoot from the three and make, and we just didn't do that tonight, end quote. I would question why Carolina thought they had to be as aggressive from the outside. I would not have thought going into the game over 50% of their shots needed to be from three. And that was even when Carolina got down double digits, and they were down double digits, the entire second half and the latter part of the first half. When Carolina put the ball inside and they committed to just putting the ball in the paint, it usually resulted in a bucket, a foul, an offensive rebound. Like, it literally felt like there was something good that happened. But when Carolina was resigned to playing from the perimeter, well, we saw what happened. They shoot 15% from behind the three-point line. There was a possession that'll stand out to me that when I think about this game. And it was a possession where Carolina got 4 shots. They got 3 offensive rebounds in one possession. All 4 of their shots from the outside. The ball quite literally never once went inside. They never even looked to put the ball inside. They rebounded their long misses, and they kicked the ball back out to take contested 3 after contested 3. There was a point where I think 9 of their 10 shots were from behind the three-point line. And I didn't understand the mindset. We've shot the ball well as of recent. You go back to the Virginia game on, the Notre Dame game on, Carolina has shot, 36, 37, 38% from behind the three-point line. But our bread and butter is not going bonkers from 3. We want to put the ball inside. We want to dominate points in the paint, whether it's through, the post-play penetration, offensive rebound. And quite literally, it felt like once State went on their first run to make it a double-digit game, Carolina abandoned that strategy. They settled for contested 3 after contested 3, which culminates in what I thought was the worst shot selection that we've seen so far this season. And to me, it's not a surprise that it ends up being the worst offensive performance of the year, scoring 58 points and shooting just 32% from the field.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the focus was, as he said, the focus was shooting better from the outside. But, yeah, I don't think the focus should have been to shoot as many times as you did from the outside. And the only way that would have made sense is if you were in a game where NC State makes 16 threes or something like that. Okay, yeah, then you've got to be able to try to keep up, because you're not going to be able to keep up through the paint. As much as you want to, as much as you think that, Zayden High and Jaren Stevenson, they had productive nights, I don't think anybody would expect them to be able to come out and put up 40 combined points, 50 combined points between the two of them. I think that's probably asking a little bit too much in order to keep you in a game like that. That's not the type of game that you ran into, though. You were in a game where State was just attacking you at the basket. And so I thought that's something that Carolina should have been trying to do in return. And you just never saw that. I mean, NC State, the thing is that for Carolina going into the game, one of the things that should have been preached to them was attack the basket as often as possible, because this is a State team that puts teams on the line. They do it very often. We talked about it in the preview, and that was not the mindset that Carolina took at all. They were settling for shots the entire night. And that's not going to lead to success. Not with this group, man. This group has been a better shooting team in conference play. They're still not a good shooting team. They're an average shooting team. They have moments where they shoot the ball well from the perimeter, but it's not consistent. It's very much like a player that's very crucial to them in Luka Bogovac. That's what it really reminds me of, is that there are some games where Carolina comes out, shoots the ball well from 3, and you think, okay, maybe they're starting to find their groove. Then there's games like this that bring you right back down to earth, and you say, yeah, still not an area of strength for Carolina. They should really be looking inside. I thought that's the mindset that they should have taken towards this game too. I know, it's hard to really say, hey, put the team on Zayden High's back, put the team on Jaren Stevenson's back. But I really think that if Carolina would have gotten them some more looks on the inside in that first half, maybe they're able to keep the game a little bit closer, because that's the thing. After halftime, you just lost complete control of the game. You thought that the only way that you could get back into it was by shooting threes and knocking down shots from the outside. And that wasn't necessarily the case, but it's more understandable why you're shooting that way when you were trailing by as much as you were at the half. And so hopefully that's a mindset that they are not taking towards any other game this season. Hopefully their mindset, regardless of if they have Caleb Wilson or Henri Veesaar, is to play through the post, because as this team showed you tonight, they are not built to be able to shoot lights out with some of the better teams that they have remaining on their schedule.
Yeah, when you look at State's ability to score the ball inside, I mean, it really just came down to the fact that Quadir Copeland was the best player on the floor tonight. And I don't want to take anything away from him, because he's had a interesting college career, starting out at Syracuse, going to McNeese, and now winding up, here at NC State. And maybe once, Wilson was injured and wasn't available, once Veesaar wasn't available to play, maybe this opened the door for him to be the best player. But, I mean, he single-handedly, I thought, from a mentality standpoint, I thought he kicked Carolina's rear end. And the way that he bodied Carolina's guards, no matter if it was Dixon, Trimble, Evans, no matter even Powell at one point, he just got the ball, went wherever he wanted to go to on the floor. And if he wanted to score a bucket, it felt like he could score a bucket whenever he wanted. I thought defensively, I mean, I saw our guy Brendan Marks tweeted out, who does a great job covering the sport for The Athletic. I mean, dude, he was like a police officer, and we were, and our guys were breaking the law, and they were just putting handcuffs. I mean, he was a menace. He was everywhere, and I think that's where Hubert was talking about it with Jones Angel. The thing I took away from that media session was the lack of fight that they had, the lack of competitive spirit that they had. And it was really just, there was never a response to that guy. And look, we knew coming in that he was a talker. It's what I think fuels him as a player. It's why him and Will Wade get along so great, because they're both relatively underachieving people that run their mouth quite a bit. But there was never a response to it. And we talked so much about going into this game about we got to take the fight to them. We got to be the ones. We got to be the ones to go in and punch first. We got to be the ones. I talked about wanting to draw blood, and we quite literally did with what happened with Darian Williams, and I'm glad that he was able to be okay and be able to come back in and compete in the ball game. But there was never an emotional response to where State was emotionally. And that was what I think Roy Williams, what made him so great, was that he got his guys to care just as much as State guys cared. And I was listening to Hansborough on the postgame show, and he talked about how he lost one time to State, and it fueled him for the rest of the time that he went against him. And we've seen other great players. We saw what Marcus Page did against them in that building. We saw what Luke May did against them in that building. We saw what R.J. Davis at different times in his career did against them in that building. That to me was disappointing. There was never someone that was willing to shut him up. And it didn't even end. The game is effectively over. They put the Snell guy in. This dude gets a technical foul for talking because he's a bench player and because he just would not shut up. And then as we're leaving the court, Quadir Copeland has the audacity to tell Caleb Wilson, lace him up next time. A guy that's got a fractured hand. It's not like he just didn't play because he pulled a Darren Peterson. He's got a broken bone in his hand. And this fool had the audacity to tell Caleb Wilson, a better player than him, to lace him up. This is where the ACC has dropped the ball. And if there was one thing Corey Alexander said tonight that made any sense in his nonstop lineage of talking, was the fact that we need to play twice a year. We should have a return game in Chapel Hill, because now you have me hoping. Let's see them in Charlotte. Let's see them in the ACC tournament, and let's see Caleb Wilson be healthy, and let's see what Quadir Copeland has to say. Because I looked at Caleb Wilson's body language, it was killing him watching State do what State did to him tonight, to his team tonight. And so, if that guy went to a different area psychologically for Duke, what would he do against NC State? I hope we get a chance to see that, because someone's going to shut Quadir Copeland up and shut him up for good. I just hope that State hangs around long enough in the ACC tournament to see us, and maybe we can be the ones that can shut him up and really get his career over a lot sooner. He talks a lot of trash, and that's very good, because pretty soon that'll be his job every day, working on the trash route, probably somewhere in the greater Raleigh area. Stat of the game, I went points off turnovers. Carolina minus 13 in that category. And, we just talked so much about how important it was going to be to take care of the ball. Like, you could not, we call them pick six turnovers, because that's what Hubert Davis calls them. It was Miami 2.0, where we were just quite literally throwing the ball into passing lanes to where State could take it and run it down for layup, transition three, foul, no matter what it was. You look at your turnovers tonight. Zayden High 4, Derek Dixon 2, Trimble 1, Luka Bogovac 3. So 4 of your 5 starters committed at least a turnover, and 3 of your 5 starters committed at least 2 turnovers or more. Can't happen. And the fact that, we never saw Hubert Davis deploy the full court press and commit to it. I think you saw it for 2 possessions. We never once tried to turn State over. Being minus 13 in that category, no matter who Carolina plays moving forward with the way this roster is built right now, without Caleb Wilson, without Henri Veesaar, it's going to be hard for this team to win basketball games.
I mean, the stat of the game could have been the turnovers itself. I mean, you're not going to win a game that you turn the ball over 12 times and they only turn it over 4. I mean, that's part of the reason why the points off of turnovers, it's where it's at. But, I mean, yeah, you bring up a great point that it seems like every turnover that this group had in this game felt like one of those pick six turnovers where it results in points. And it was an easy basket on the other end for State most of the time. It wasn't anything that was remotely contested. It just felt like they were doing pretty much whatever they wanted off of those turnovers. So, yeah, another bad look for Carolina in that area. You were hoping that Carolina, a team that did such a good job of holding on to the ball here recently. I mean, that's been something they've done a really good job of most of the year, but especially in conference play, they've done a good job of holding on to the basketball. You thought that was going to be something that they were going to be able to do tonight. That would cause NC State some problems, or at least, make the game a little bit more even than what this final score was. And that just ultimately wasn't the case. When you're shooting as badly as you were from the field, and then it compounds with something like that, it's really hard to ask a team to win a game when they are trailing in those categories, especially as significantly as they were in this game.
All right, let's get to some more thoughts, more takeaways as we continue to talk through Carolina's 82-58 loss to NC State on the road in Raleigh tonight. Heels fall to 20-6 on the year. They're 8-5 in the league and positioning themselves to get a double bye in the ACC tournament is a very bleak outlook right now. You do have a game against Clemson that maybe if you win that could really help, but you don't have some tiebreakers right now that you would need, as you've now got a loss to State on your resume, as well as a loss to Louisville on your resume as well. Just want to get back into the backcourt just being a non-factor tonight. And I do think that it is important. Like, their job is insanely tougher when you're missing your two best players that happen to be front court players. And so you do have to put that caveat out there that with no Wilson, with no Veesaar, their job is extremely difficult because you just don't have someone to take the pressure off of you. And I think as we're learning, as we're seeing, it's Carolina's being guarded different without those two guys on the floor because of the dimension, because of the attention that they demand, the attention that they require. I think you got to look at the fact that you got 9 points combined, 3 of 21 shooting, and 1 of 12 from 3 from your backcourt. That's what your starting backcourt combined to do tonight. And then you got nothing from Kyan Evans in his 16 minutes. He was 0 of 2 from the field. Did have 3 assists though, so you got to give him credit for that. Jaden Young gave you 5 points in 16 minutes, but was 2 of 6 from the field, 1 of 5 from behind the 3-point line. So everyone was cold. Everyone was cold from the outside. I didn't understand why they never tried to attack the paint. Like they never once looked at what Quadir Copeland was doing to Carolina, what State was doing, and they never once thought to try that themselves. I don't know, outside of when Trimble had the dunk attempt, if he took a shot inside the painted area all night. And this is coming after a night or a game in Pittsburgh where he scores 19 points and took 11 foul shots. Why did he take 11 foul shots? Because he was living in the paint. He was living at the rim. He was forcing the issue. And that's, to me, what I don't understand. And look, this team has won at Kentucky. They've won at Virginia. But there's just a disconnect with this team when they leave Chapel Hill. They're not the same team. And I thought that was what I was most disappointed in when you look at Trimble's performance tonight. What happened at Miami a week ago, when you think about it in totality, man, I can forgive that. Like, how many guys would be able to bounce back after hitting the shot of his life against Duke? I don't know. Only the ones that will go on to be, great NBA players, Hall of Famers, champions. Those were the dudes that could maybe have that moment, be ready to bounce back and play 48 hours later. Seth Trimble's not going to do that. I mean, he might get a NBA camp invite. More than likely, if he's going to play professional basketball, it's going to be overseas. But when you've been here for 4 years and you've waited to be the guy, you need more from your most veteran guard, your most experienced backcourt player than what you got from him tonight. And there's going to be pressure on him and Derek Dixon both to respond in a big way on Saturday against a reeling Syracuse team.
Yeah, I mean, for Trimble, he's the guy that it really reflects on the most. I mean, 1 of 9 from the field today is just not good enough. I mean, for a guy that you're looking to be a veteran leader on this team, I mean, they were looking for him to be a veteran leader before the season. It wasn't just going into tonight. And now in your last 2 games midweek, you have hit one field goal. That's it. That's all you've done. I mean, even tonight, we talked about, the importance of being able to set a tone early in this game. He goes to the foul line, and only goes 2 of 4 from the foul line. And both of those, those free throw trips were pretty early in the game. You just didn't see him attacking the basket the way that you want to see him attack the basket. And that's what's concerning, because that's what we saw in the game against Miami. He's not a jump shooter, man. We've come to know that. I get it. His biggest shot in the history of his career is going to be a jump shot, but it's a wide open jump shot. He's not a guy that's going to be able to take a game over from 3 and hit some of these guarded threes. So what he's got to do is what he did against Pittsburgh the other day, which is get to the rim, get to the front of the rim and create some contact or finish at the rim. And I think if he would have been able to do that tonight, then Carolina's in a much different game. But, I mean, yeah, as you said, it was really everybody in the backcourt that needs to share the responsibility. I mean, the thing that's unbelievable in this game is that Carolina was 11 for 47 outside of Jaren Stevenson and Zayden High. Everybody else that plays in this game is a guard. So all of these guys should be able to shoot the ball from beyond the arc, even in the mid-range game. You didn't see that from anybody. And I know there were people that were complaining, well, we should have seen Isaiah Dennis in this game. Guys, I don't know how to tell you this. Isaiah Dennis is not changing this game in any sort of way. He would not have come in and all of a sudden lit up. Would I have minded seeing him in this game? Oh, absolutely not, especially with some of the shots that were being thrown up early. I would not have minded if Hubert decided, you know what, I'm calling a timeout and we're going to throw Isaiah Dennis into the game and see what he's got. Just try to light a spark underneath this team. That didn't end up happening because Hubert still, one of the things that I thought he should have done tonight is probably should have called timeout during a few of these moments where the lead was getting out of hand. He chose not to. We have said that, a guy like Roy Williams deserves to be stubborn because of the career path that he had, because of the success that he had. Hubert Davis doesn't have that success. So I would have liked to see him call timeout a little bit more often. But, I mean, yeah, the backcourt, I mean, what are you going to do when your backcourt shoots as poorly as that? So moving forward, man, and it starts with the game against Syracuse because, yeah, that game looks like it's easy on paper, but you just don't know. You beat, granted, you won by 14 against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh might be the worst team in this conference. They are as bad as it gets. There's a reason why Jeff Capel is going to be fired at the end of the season. So, I mean, you need guys like Derek Dixon to be better than he was tonight. Luka Bogovac better be better than he was tonight. I mean, he was the worst player on the floor for Carolina for the entirety of this game. And, yes, Seth Trimble better bounce back because if he doesn't, then Carolina is going to be looking at a loss that will have many people melting down on Saturday against Syracuse.
Yeah, when it comes to the timeout thing, I don't think calling a timeout in this game would have changed the outcome in any way. Like you get 8 free timeouts a game, and you had plenty of stoppages early on because of some of the fouls that had to be reviewed, so on and so forth. I don't think there wasn't that moment tonight where I thought, yeah, he needs to call timeout. And there have been times where I've felt that and he has called timeout. There have been times where I haven't felt like he should call timeout and he's called timeout. And it's either worked for him or kind of been a nothing burger. There's only so many things you could say to a team that, lacked the fight they had tonight that would have changed maybe the outcome of the game. I think one thing we can talk about in terms of projecting forward is our guy, Jonathan Powell, finally got the minutes we've been begging for. He played 26 minutes off the bench. And look, is this stat line sexy? 9 points, 3 of 8 from the field, 1 of 4 from 3? No. But he gave you 5 rebounds, committed 2 fouls, and had a turnover. There's something about him that I like more than Luka Bogovac. And I don't know if it's just the fact that there's an outward competitive energy about him. If it's the fact that I know he's a better defender. I think he's a better shooter. I don't know what it is, but I just always felt more comfortable with Jonathan Powell playing more minutes than Luka. And look, before the injuries happened, it felt like Luka had kind of settled into a role coming off the bench. He got put back into the starting lineup, and he was good against Pittsburgh on Saturday, was very aggressive, but Pitt's terrible. Not a whole lot of stock I can put into that. I don't want to say scared because I'd hope no one's as scared to go play basketball. I just felt like he was overwhelmed by everything that he had to endure tonight at NC State, which is odd because he played professional basketball overseas. And, we hear about some of the environments that you see in overseas basketball. They're legit environments. Now, maybe the things he heard were probably a little bit different because of how classless state fans are. We saw and heard some of the chants they were chanting about Zayden High, some of the ones they were chanting about Hubert Davis. I mean, really giving the Cameron Crazies a run for their money in terms of how to handle yourself at a college basketball game. But if this lineup is going, it's going to be compromised on Saturday because Caleb Wilson is not going to be ready to play. I would hope that Henri Veesaar is ready to play. If not, I think you really got to start being concerned about him because that'd be 3 games that he's missed. And it would have been, almost 12 days since he last played a basketball game. I do think Hubert Davis has to look long and hard at doing something different at that 3 spot. Y'all know how I feel about Jaden Young. And I was really happy for him when he got his chance to start. But I don't know if Jaden Young is the same impactful player that he is without Wilson and Veesaar on the court at the same time. And so I hope that Hubert Davis and this coaching staff, they continue to look at what Jonathan Powell is doing. And maybe they're open to giving him a starting role because I thought he was the only guy outside of Stevenson, outside of Zayden High, that gave Carolina a fighting chance in this game tonight. He was the only guy with the pulse, and I think that needs to be rewarded with more minutes and potentially a starting job on Saturday against Syracuse.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see it. I'm not going to hold my breath that it's going to happen because we have been saying for pretty much the entire year, can you get this guy out there on the court more minutes? Can you please start him? And we said that. We said that Luka Bogovac is a guy that seems to thrive more off the bench for Carolina. Doesn't really seem to matter to this coaching staff. They want to keep Luka Bogovac out there as a starter now. They wanted to keep Jaren Stevenson in the starting lineup for some reason. Meanwhile, with Jonathan Powell, you still get pretty good length, and you get a guy that's going to defend at an incredibly high level. And I thought there were moments again tonight where that showed through, where he was playing hard on the defensive end of the floor. Some of the shots from the outside for him made much more sense than they made for some of the other guys that were taking shots from the outside. And then you saw him get aggressive and try to drive the basket a couple of times, and it resulted in a couple of made shots. Now, that's still an area that I'd like to see him develop his game a little bit more. I'd like to see him potentially look for that a little bit more often than just standing out there and taking threes, because I do think that that's a part of his game that's actually not that bad. I do think he's actually a pretty good finisher at the rim, and he's got a pretty quick first step that can allow him to turn the corner on certain guys. Not everybody, but certain guys. So I wouldn't mind seeing it. I've said it all season long. I think he just does things right. And for some reason, it just doesn't seem like that is being reciprocated by this coaching staff. We'll see if that changes after tonight, because you're right. I think he was one of the other guys on the floor, one of the few guys besides Jaren Stevenson and Zayden High, maybe the only guy that really gave you any sort of feeling like Carolina had any sort of chance in this game. 26 minutes, 9 points, 5 rebounds. I mean, yeah, you can kind of live with that. Now, would you like for him to be a little bit more efficient from beyond the arc? Yes, certainly, especially in a night where nobody else is really doing anything. But I thought, he continued to show why he's a player that we're stumping for, why he's somebody that we really want to see out there a little bit more. And yeah, I'd like to see him over Luka Bogovac because, Luka showed you tonight on a couple of those drives from Kadir Copeland when he got matched up with him. He is not going to be able to stay in front of anybody. He is not quick enough to be able to stay in front of people. He's not strong enough to be able to stay in front of guys. And so he's going to get destroyed in some of these transition plays down the court. He's going to get blown by in some of these plays in the half court. And so you need to have Jonathan Powell playing a significant amount of minutes. Unless Luka Bogovac is absolutely lighting it up. If he can become consistently what he was against Pittsburgh, then maybe we can have a conversation. But why not have that from him coming off the bench and start Jonathan Powell to see if there's something there? That would make a ton of sense to me, especially in a game against Syracuse where you can probably afford to change some things up and still find a way to win that game, even though it's on the road.
All right, let's get to our discussion topic here really quickly, and then we will get out of this edition of the podcast. And we're going to change it up because of the response that we're getting in the comments. And we want to thank everyone that is tuning in, watching live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. And those of you that are commenting on the stream as well, we do greatly appreciate it. The discussion topic I had written down was this result felt possible if Veesaar wasn't able to go. So where does Carolina go from here? We'll scrap that, maybe save that for whenever we preview the game against Syracuse later in the week. We knew coming into the year that it felt like whenever Carolina got beat, there was going to be a referendum on the head coach, and that would be what the majority of the conversation was going to be about. And look, I don't think that was the case when Carolina lost to Michigan State. I don't think that was the case when they lost to SMU. Certainly it was when they lost the both games out west to California and Stanford. You and I, a big part of that, very critical of Hubert Davis for those losses. The Miami loss, I think we all kind of saw that coming a mile away. And tonight, I guess I just wasn't prepared to get on here, go live, and get the type of comments we're getting about Hubert Davis. So, for example, we got this one here from AJ on Facebook. I believe Davis went into the game defeated. He coached without any intensity, and the team fed off of that. I mean, if you know anything about Hubert Davis, I don't think that that's not the sense that I got. I don't think they were feeding off their head coach going into the game with the defeated mindset. We've got this comment here from Michael Daniels, also watching live on YouTube. We appreciate him. We all know that where'd it go? He sent in a bunch of, here it goes. We don't look like Carolina basketball. We haven't looked like Carolina basketball for years. Time for a change. I mean, did you feel that same way when Carolina beat Duke a week ago? And he outcoached John Shire in the final 2.5 minutes of the ball game to lead an epic comeback against your rival. My buddy William McAllister does a great job interacting with Carolina fans on Twitter. He sent me a DM and saying, I know that we don't have Wilson and Veesaar, but this just isn't good enough. How many coaches would thrive without their two best players? How many coaches would thrive without, 30? I mean, you're missing 38 points and 20 rebounds. That's what Carolina's missing right now. Yeah. How many coaches in the country, honestly, would be able to overcome that? If we're being honest. That list is probably shorter than you think. That list is maybe Dusty May, who's maybe the best coach right now in the sport with what he's done with Michigan. Maybe it's Dan Hurley after winning 2 national titles in 3 years at UConn. Maybe it's Rick Pitino, who might be pound for pound the best coach from an X's and O's perspective the sport's ever seen. That's probably it, guys. Like not Shire, not Izzo, not Tommy Lloyd, not Kelvin Sampson, not TJ Otzelberger. Those guys aren't overcoming losing 38 and 20. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're a less coach. And I feel like there have been certain times to be critical of Hubert Davis. I think there have been times to raise your doubts and concerns, because certainly we have as well. Tonight's not that night. Like, they go to lose to Syracuse and they look this way. You want to get on Hubert then, because Syracuse effectively last night quit. I mean, they lost by 40 to Duke. There's never a scenario, no matter how good Duke is, where Syracuse basketball should be losing by 40. That is too proud of a program, too historic of a program for that to ever happen. Or, if this continues to slide and Carolina continues to look the way that they look tonight, then you want to bag on Hubert. But I don't know how you watch that game and you thought the biggest issue was Carolina's head coach, because that thought never once entered my mind. He cannot make them take good shots. He cannot make them not turn the ball over. He cannot make them guard and not let Quadir Copeland just back down 4 different defenders throughout the game and get into the paint and turn and score. There's only so much that he can do with the roster that he has right now. If you want to argue that they should have built a better roster around Caleb Wilson, Henri Veesaar, that's a different argument for a different time. That argument does not need to happen right now. But tonight's loss, and look, I know it's bad because you lost by 24. Biggest loss since 1959. And we don't like losing to them, whether it's by 1, 4, or 24. But this does not need to be the narrative on social media. The conversation on a day where you landed a 5-star prospect that's supposed to be the future of the program going into next season does not need to see that same fan base wanting that same coach that landed that 5-star prospect to be fired because they suffered their most disappointing result of the season so far in 2025, 2026.
Well, I mean, there's the thing, though, is that you suffered your most disappointing loss this season. I mean, you're talking about a season that has losses to Stanford and California. Those are losses that you should never be taking as Carolina basketball. And so I think that's probably where a lot of the vitriol comes, is that a lot of people feel like this was the worst loss that Carolina has taken this season. And so they immediately go to the head coach. I think he deserves some blame for what happened tonight. There's no doubt about that. But I do think that he is far from the biggest reason why Carolina lost the way that they lost. In terms of the intensity thing, I mean, look, man, it was hard to tell whether or not he had the intensity for this game because they never showed him on television. They only showed Will Wade on television. So I couldn't tell you whether or not Hubert Davis was as into this game as he is other games, but I find it hard to believe that he wasn't, especially a matchup against NC State. He's going to be ready to go for that type of game. Yeah, you bring up a great point that I think a lot of people have to realize. I mean, you're without your top 2 scorers. Just tell me the last time that any college basketball team ran into this situation. It's been a long time. And if they're probably not that good of a basketball team. I don't remember the last team that, I've seen that has been down its top 2 players. And so, I mean, yeah, that shows you right there. I mean, you lose 38-20. It's almost impossible to replace that. And I mean, look, they got what they got from the guys tonight, but still, you could see that it was much easier for State to just take away the perimeter and say, hey, there were times where they were like, please dump it down inside, and Carolina just wouldn't do it. No matter how many chances, NC State was giving them, they said, no, we're still going to settle for shots from beyond the perimeter. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think that Hubert Davis is the biggest reason why Carolina lost this game, but I also understand why people are frustrated with this loss, and it makes sense that we are getting these responses because we knew going into this year, as you said, that this was going to be the reaction to just about every loss. Was going to be, well, this is a year, this is a make or break year for Hubert Davis. So ultimately, when they lose a game in one of those in that type of season, it's ultimately going to be a poor reflection on him, and it means they should fire him. I don't think you should be there based on tonight's game. I think as you said, if you put up this type of performance against Syracuse, like let's say you get blown out against Syracuse, okay, then we're really in the thick of it. Then we're having a real serious discussion as to whether or not this is actually going to last past the end of this season. So I think that's where you should be saving your vitriol for. I know there are going to be Tar Heel fans, as sad as it is, that are going to be rooting for Carolina to lose on Saturday just so that they can get to that point. But, for me, I'm hoping that we don't have to get to that breaking point like we did earlier this season, where it felt like there was still some runway for Carolina to come back. With this one, if they were to lose to Syracuse, I don't know if there is any runway for Hubert Davis really to come back. And unless Caleb Wilson was to come back from his injury, Henry comes back from his injury, and you somehow beat Duke.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I don't think that Hubert Davis's job as of right now is in jeopardy, is in question. I do think the injury is going to give him a little bit of a grace period, whether that's right, wrong, and I don't know. But I do feel like it's kind of bought him some time, considering just you're talking about the best statistical freshman in the history of this program. I do think that this administration would be a lot more understanding if Carolina maybe does fizzle and fade down the stretch, as opposed to maybe if they were healthy and suffer the loss the way they suffered the loss tonight to NC State. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the podcast. Before we let you go, I just want to mention this really quickly, really briefly, because we will have an edition about this coming up tomorrow. But, of course, the big recruiting news this morning, Carolina did land 5-star combo guard Dylan Mingo. Depending on which recruiting service you look at, consensus top 10 player in next year's class, and a big piece for a 2026 recruiting class that now has him and Maxima Adams, signed right now. So we will have a further, thoughts and comments about that edition tomorrow, where we're going to talk about Dylan Mingo's commitment, and we got pretty significant updates on the battle and the future of Carolina's basketball home. That, of course, being the Smith Center. So we'll have an episode about that coming your way tomorrow. And then we did want to wish, because it is Michael Jordan's birthday, a happy birthday to the GOAT. Happy birthday to the guy that delivered Dean Smith his first national championship. One of the greatest college basketball players of all time, one of the greatest ACC players of all time, the unquestioned best NBA player of all time. And, of course, he's still riding high after winning the Daytona 500 on Sunday as an owner of 2311 Racing. Did want to wish a happy birthday to Michael Jordan. But with that, folks, that will wrap up this edition of the show. In the meantime, we will direct you guys to the website, HeelToughBlog.com, where we had you covered wire to wire today with the Mingo news. We got you ready for the state game. Even an article 2 hours before the tip about Veesaar not being able to go. I'll have the state recap up for you guys tomorrow. We prioritize the podcast over the website, so that'll delay that recap. It'll be made available for you guys tomorrow morning, so be on the lookout for all that great content. Anthony has you covered on the football side of things as well. Carolina added a quarterback in the portal on Sunday. They're getting active in the next recruiting class. Coverage about that can be found HeelToughBlog.com. As for the podcast, you guys know where to find us. Every major podcasting platform. Just search the Four Corners Podcast and we'll pop up. There, we encourage you guys to rate, review, and subscribe. That way you don't miss any audio editions of the show. Like tomorrow's edition where we talk about Dylan Mingo. We'll be back on Thursday with the state preview. Hit that subscribe button. That way you don't miss any editions of the show throughout the remainder of the regular season. We're pretty much recording just about every day. So you want to make sure that you're subscribed so you're not missing any of our episodes talking Carolina basketball. If you're a video consumer of the pod, the best way to keep up with us is to like and follow the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Both of those handles are at Heel Tough Blog, or follow us both on Twitter. I'm at HTB_Josh. He's at HTB Anthony. We're both putting the links up to the podcast. If you follow us both, the second that we go live, you will be notified. You can jump in and be a part of our conversation talking Carolina basketball. But with that, folks, it is going to wrap up this edition of the show. I do want to thank Anthony once again for hosting with me. We want to thank you guys for both watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.